Welcome everyone. Today's topic is new wholesaling techniques. Become the best wholesaler 2021, and we have the pleasure to have one of the best wholesalers in the Chicagoland area. Welcome, Cheryl Stewart. Thank you for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you with us tonight. Cheryl, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? So welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure. I have been in a real estate investor for over 10 and a half years now. During that time, so my first deal occurred in May of 2010. Since then, I've done hundreds of deals dealing with millions upon millions of dollars of real estate. I have after I did start with wholesaling, it was brand new. I had absolutely no experience other than buying my own house, and I will never buy retail again. But I did. Since then, I've been able to, I've fixed and sold, fix and rent, I'll lease option properties out. I've taken them subject to the mortgage and done anything creative I can, pretty much anything I can do to make a buck and help people out in with their real estate challenges. My first deal I'll tell you about in a second. That's always it's always an interesting one. Personally, I've been married for 18 years. My husband is a dentist in the McHenry area, and I have 2 children. My daughter is applying to college, which is a very scary thing, and my son is 13, and I have 12 pets. So I have a love for animals. So we'll see how that goes. That's always fun in the real estate world. I'll tell some of my sellers that if they have an animal around, that I apologize in advance. I will ignore them. And most of them are okay with that. It's fun stuff. As far as my my first deal, just so you guys know, because I understand that on this call we have people that have never touched real estate and wanted to get started, which wholesaling is a great place, all the way to people who have wholesaled or done other investing in real estate in the past. My first deal, I had absolutely no experience. What I'm known for in my lovely experience is in meeting them, I had to borrow $1 for earnest money. And when the deal was completed, while I made $8,000 in gross, I netted $72.12. You'll always remember your first one on that deal. The checks had my name spelled wrong, so I was upset. But that was my first deal, and I did a double close. What you may want to know, for those of you that may be new and aren't even certain as to what wholesaling is, the definition of wholesaling as far as real estate goes is anytime you want to purchase a property and you get it under contract, but you have no intention of closing on that property or maintaining it yourself, so you're never on title, you never have to take money out of your pocket, and you're able to sell that contract to somebody else who is going to close on the property, or and keep it themselves or fix it up. Sometimes you can do what we call assigning the contract, which is you literally are selling that piece of paper. If I get a house under contract at $100,000, and then I want to sell it to Hugo, and he buys it from me for $110,000, then he can either pay me $10,000 and he can step into the contract and close on it himself, so I'm never on title. Or the other option is we're able to, what you might have heard is a double close, where you can either do a B to C closing first and then A to B. Those are a lot harder now. Most of the time you'll have to purchase it first and then sell it to someone the same day. So you may be on title for 30 seconds, an hour, something of that nature. So those are the main ways that for the definition of wholesaling. There's been a lot of controversy over wholesaling as to whether or not you need a license, since some of the Illinois laws have changed since August of 2019. Sorry, with COVID, my days are a little screwed up still. The answer is wholesaling, meaning assigning the contract, is technically a licensed activity. And if you intend on doing more than 2 in any given 12-month period, then you need a license, meaning a real estate agent broker's license to complete that transaction, or you can be subject to fines of $25,000 per incident. However, if you double close, technically you do not need a license, as long as you are on title and therefore purchasing it for yourself or in your company's name, then you can be on title. It doesn't matter if it's for 30 seconds or 3 months or 3 years. You're on title, you own it. That is not necessarily considered wholesaling. So it's a very important distinction to make. There are some concerns nowadays with marketing, especially if you are an agent. It's a licensed activity and you have to have your brokerage listed, and you certainly have to disclose that you're a realtor. So all those kinds of things. See, Hugo, I'm lonely again. They're not talking to me and they're not on video. It's one thing you guys will learn about me is I like to have everybody saying hi. One thing that I should, thanks, Mark. One thing I should tell you guys too that I missed in my introduction is Hugo and I have started the Chicago Deal Vault Inner Circle. It is going to be the best and largest wholesaling team, especially here in the Chicagoland area. It's going to start here. Don't worry, I'll work on Hugo to expand it yet. But right now it's in the Chicagoland area. Look at you guys all coming on. Thank you so much. So we're going to have the best and brightest money-making team here in the Chicagoland area, because Hugo and Chicago Deal Vault have it set up so nicely with great support. Chicago Deal Vault has so much to offer as it is with the leads. And now we've expanded it to create a wholesaling team where we provide training, and we are willing to review the contracts and make it where all you have to do is acquire. I'm sorry, I'm putting my phones on vibrate. All you have to do is acquire the contract, and then we will take care of the rest, and we'll split the deal with you 50-50, plus support and training. It is new. Exciting. We're still working out some of the bumps, but it's going really great. We started it just before the holidays. Hugo's got it on the screen where we have, what's it up to now, Hugo? It was like 57 or something last I saw, 50 something.
67.
There we are. See, that's our awesome team. It's broken out into team leads, and it's the reason being is, as you heard, I hold a busy schedule. I do run my husband's dental office on top of my real estate business, all my other businesses, and my 2 kids and 12 pets. And believe it or not, I still make us eat dinner together as a family. I'm kind of the mean mom. You know, my son's on a travel baseball team, so I'm running him all over. So I can't always be readily available to take care of everything I need for my family and all my businesses, and the 57 of everybody and answering their questions on an immediate basis. So we have a strict protocol that you go to your team lead and to Chicago Deal Vault, and then they do escalate up to me. I mean, I've had conversations with several of you that look like you're on this call, and emails and text messages. So the support is there. And for those of you that are interested in truly becoming quality wholesalers and interested in, acquiring the contract and being able to pass it along and really scale your business, by all means, Phil or Hugo will provide. I don't know even if I don't have my chat open. I should open that in case somebody said hi. So it looks like Phil probably already put it there. That's for the sign-up form. Phil, can you put on in the chance anybody's interested in joining the Inner Circle team, they can fill out our form for that too. You guys are certainly not obligated. There's no cost. It's going to ask you a little about your experience. You know, it's good training, but they'll tell you, I like to hold you accountable, and I want to make sure you perform. I want to make sure that the people there, you guys want to be there, and we're all bringing each other up versus weighing each other down. There's a ton of pieces and parts that are associated in a wholesaling transaction. And the most important and the most challenging part is getting it under contract. We've spent a lot of time in the inner circle dealing with that. For those of you that don't know, you do have to work. It's funny. All the things that people say you can get houses under contract without, we don't check your credit, you don't need any cash, you don't need any credit, you don't need anything. You just need to go out and work, take action, right? That's all true. Sometimes it's easier than others. I've made deals, you know, I've sold things on a wholesale basis. I've had low wholesale fees of $500 and $1,000. And my largest one is I had a 6-figure wholesale. And it's funny, that one was by far one of my easiest deals. It's funny how that works. And then those ones for 500 and 1,000 or a couple grand sometimes take more time and energy than you know what to do with. It happens. My goal for 2021 is I'd like to have $1 million wholesale deal. I think that would just be sweet. And then, like I said, for in the future, both for my own personal residence and all the ones that I have as a landlord, I would never buy retail again. And I'm going to apologize in advance if I offend anybody on this call. Those that are in the inner circle already know me, and I'm very direct. I'm very straightforward. I mean no ill will in any way, shape, or form. But you will hear me say not necessarily mean things, but I'm not typically a fan of working with agents. And by the way, I'm a licensed one myself now. Hugo holds my license, so thank you, Hugo. It's also willing for those that are in the inner circle and working with this. Hugo has offered, in some cases, to hold people's licenses as well. So that's another benefit and opportunity within the inner circle, should you be interested. You do have to work is the big thing. Sometimes it can be easy, like I said, sometimes it's not. Some deals can be brought to you. More of them are brought to you when you are in the field and when you are working. We talk about a lot of areas to get them. You do have to market. In the inner circle, you'll find Hugo has provided through ChicagoDealVault thousands of leads that you can call on. Those leads are scanned for their pre-foreclosure and high equity. It does not guarantee that they're motivated, but they likely are. If somebody has pre-foreclosure, that means that they've been served with a lis pendens and it's recording, so they've missed a couple of payments, they're behind, and their mortgage company has indicated there's a good chance that they'll be moving forward with the foreclosure process if they don't make good on their payments. There's some of the leads. And I'm sure he'll show you can see some notes where people are calling. These are all over the Chicagoland area. There's nothing more in one area than the other. And it's, like I said, it's based on high equity and pre-foreclosure. We also talk about marketing. Marketing is a big area of wholesaling. Whoever has the deal, you know, gets to control it. So like I said, acquisition and getting it under contract is vital. So when you market, I don't know if any of you have marketed before. Even agents have to market. How do you think they get their leads, right? You probably all get in the mail on a regular daily basis, I'm sure. You probably all get postcards from different agents. If you look in, I'm a member of a lot of different groups, and the newsletters you get both online, and I'm still a paper person, I'm out on the road a lot, but the print newsletters, you see a ton of agents marketing in there, right? So you guys see postcards from them. So the ones that are marketing are the ones that are likely making more money. And guess what? They're the ones that have more deals because they're marketing. So it is an important part. You can do postcards. You can do signs. Has anybody ever driven around and seen a bright yellow sign with hot pink writing that says Cheryl buys houses? I'm Cheryl. So put 2 and 2 together. Don't get me in trouble, please. So I have signs out there, and no, I don't put them out there. Somebody asked me that the other day. It is not me. I'm way too busy. I do not have time to put them out there. I have a team that'll put them out there. So those are kind of your offline marketing. There's a ton of different offline marketing that you can do that we've also talked about in the inner circle. There's a ton of online marketing now that people are doing. Plenty of people have been doing Facebook, Google. Those can be expensive, but they can also be very good. There's a lot of retargeting things. But those of you that can learn to nail the marketing and being able to talk to sellers and get it under contract, those are going to be the big things. So marketing is your top priority for wholesaling. Talking to sellers. This has been right now, I don't know, a source of frustration for our new ones in the inner circle. It takes a while. The main things that we need to focus on, right? We spent a lot of time on this in the inner circle. The number one thing you need to do is build rapport. That doesn't mean just talking to somebody, although it can. But if I could give you one piece of advice to walk away with, it's don't be out for yourself. Everyone sitting on this call, everyone that's your seller, we're all thinking about what's in it for me, right? So if we walk in and we say, I want to buy your house for this amount, how does that help them? It may. If it's their number, it may. But the biggest thing is, what is their reason? What do they need to do? How can you help them solve that problem? I was in a meeting today and they had met with other investors. And I come up against other investors all the time. Their numbers aren't necessarily wrong. But you know what? People let me buy their house for less than the other investors. Why is that? How do I get away with that, if you want to call it that? I'm honest. I'm trustworthy. They can see that I want to help them. They see that I know what I'm talking about. I'm able to handle all of their objections, which is a really important thing, to be able to handle all the objections that they throw at you and to properly set yourself up to get the contract. There's a lot of work to do there. It's certainly not something that we can do in one call. We've had so many conversations recently with the inner circle where we're struggling with the attorney. How do you handle the attorney? That's an objection. How do you handle, well, my agent told me that, I can get this much for the property, right? So after we mark it and then we try and talk to the seller, we have to properly set up the contract, right? We get it under contract. Now, you guys didn't hear anything about numbers there, right? Well, numbers aren't important to me yet. They will be important. They have to be there. And that is part of the discussion to get it under contract. But they're not vital when you get the contract. It is more about the seller, if you can get that far. Then we evaluate the numbers once it's under contract. Okay? This is why we go through the deals in the inner circle at nauseum and why we're there to support you. This is the hardest part to learn for a while, and it's a pretty big deal. After we get it under contract and we evaluate the numbers, if you're not in the inner circle and you're not passing it along, well, your goal is to get paid, right? That means that when you have it under contract, you have to have it under contract for less than somebody who wants to keep it to fix and sell it or to fix and rent it will pay, right? So you've got to make sure it's got to be a good deal for the person you're selling it to and get it a little less, and the difference going to be your wholesaling fee, your profit, whether it's, like I said, a couple $100, couple $1,000, or a six-figure one, right? So that's your goal. Whether you're passing it along to the inner circle or you're keeping it yourself, you have to have those numbers right. Even if you don't have them right up front and you pass it along, what's cool is you have the opportunity to renegotiate with the seller. So let's say I bought that property that I was talking to about selling to Hugo for, 110. I bought it for 100. And Hugo really wants the property and he wants to buy it from me. And he says, Cheryl, the most I can give you is 100 grand. Well, that kind of sucks, right? Because I already got it under contract at 100 grand. So what am I going to do? Well, I'm either going to discuss with Hugo how I can't sell it to you for 100 grand. I can sell it to you for 105 and convince Hugo to pay me more. Or I can go back to the seller and work with them and say, I need it for 90. I need it for 95. Whatever it is that you want that spread. So there's a lot of work to be done there. If you don't have things set up front well with your rapport and helping your seller, guess what? You're not getting it for less than 100, and you're either going to pass the deal along to Hugo and for nothing, or you're going to sell it to Hugo. And like I said, you have to have a good rapport even with Hugo or whomever your buyer is to make sure to get that right price that you need to get your fee. Or you're going to have to find some other way somebody else to sell it to, or some other way to make your fee, or you're going to walk away from that contract, right? And then Hugo's going to come behind you and get it from the seller at the price that he wanted it for anyway, and you lost out. So after we have it under contract, we have to find our buyers to sell it to. So there's a whole way too that there's more marketing there to build your buyers list and knowing how to present it to the buyers and how to speak with them. You have to be able to deal with the attorneys, with agents, with title companies. There's a lot of moving parts. If any one piece or part decides to drop at any given time, your whole deal can fall apart, and all that work and all that money that you spent on marketing or all those times on phone calls or whatever you did all just went out the window and you lost your wholesaling fee. And we don't like that. So we want to make sure to help you get it at the right price and properly set it up so that, like I said, there's enough to learn on the front end versus worrying about what happens on the back end. But we'll help there too if that's something you wanted to do. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of what it is to wholesale and the pieces and parts of the wholesale. Should we start? Are there questions? I know that we're at the half-hour point. I want to make sure that I get people's questions, or is there something you guys want me to focus on?
Well, it's learning this quick stuff was how do I protect my mental health and what funds?
Is somebody cutting out? I can't see who's speaking. You identify yourself? I lost them. Was that an accident? Maybe they'll come back.
Well, I want to ask a question if I'm able.
Fire away. What's your name?
Wayne.
Wayne, thanks for coming on and appreciate the video. I don't feel lonely when I have people to chat at.
Thank you. Going back to doing the double close in order to be able to be legal in Illinois. Now, is that confirmed, or is that a gray area? You're able to do that without any repercussions or having to worry about something happening later on?
Nope. That is, it's legitimate. It's completely legal because you own the property. If you're buying it for yourself and you're making money for yourself, you don't have to be licensed.
Okay, so the is a term equitable interest, because you have an equitable interest in it that puts you in a safe space. Does that make sense?
No, an equitable interest means you have it under contract. So if you have it under contract and you have an equitable interest, there you have rights for an equitable interest. Okay, So, but if you go to assign that contract, which you have to properly set it up to assign it to, but if you assign that contract, that's technically a licensed activity, because a licensed agent, their fiduciary responsibility is to their client. And in this case, if you're an agent, you have to disclose to the seller that you're an agent, and you have to do whatever is in the best interest for your client, which is that seller at that moment in time, even above your own interests. Okay, so the reason, my belief, and this is not law, this is Cheryl's belief, is the reason that they went this route, that they changed the law. I believe it's two things. First and foremost is that, and again, these are my beliefs. This does not make it accurate, so please do not say, well, Cheryl said, is that one, they wanted to protect the sellers, because there are a lot of seminars that come through town. There's a lot of newbies that, come out and say and do stupid stuff and get it under contract at a high price. And these sellers are getting all excited. They're packing their stuff. They're moving. They're thinking they're going to have it. And then the wholesaler, as I said, has no intention of really closing on the property. And if they can't sell the contract, then the one that gets, screwed, for lack of a better word, is the seller.
Right.
So in the state of Illinois, I do believe one good reason that they did it, which I wasn't a fan of it, but one good reason they did it is to protect the seller. Now, because I'm not one of those bad ones, I didn't like it, right? But I do understand where a lot of sellers get screwed. And then the other reason, and this is definitely more the Cheryl one, is that I think many agents didn't like that wholesalers do it better, smarter, and faster and make more money than they do, and they got jealous.
Okay.
Sorry, all you brokers out there, I still love you.
Okay.
But that's my belief. But I do think they're trying to protect the sellers, and there were a lot that, like I said, their deals would fall through, and it gives wholesalers a bad name. The thing is, what they don't consider is, just because you have a property under contract, even one that's listed on the MLS, doesn't mean it goes through. I've rehabbed properties, and whoops, say hi to my kitten. She's new. That's Polo. I got her a couple weeks ago from one of the houses that I looked at, and they could barely afford their rent, let alone anything else, and their neighbor was going to shoot her. So she came home with me. That's number 12 right there. So just because you have it under contract on the market, like when you go to put an offer on a house, there's nothing different. We had this conversation in the inner circle the other day. There's nothing different about me putting in an offer. Thank you, Celia. and putting it under contract, and then having a lawyer review it, and then having an inspection. These are all normal proceedings, right? And there's a million places that a house can fall through. So why they decided to say that, sellers can't, that you have to be licensed for wholesaling activity, there's plenty of agents, you list the house and it doesn't go through. I had one house that I sold right at the end of the year in Wonder Lake that was on its third contract, and it fell through 3 times. Nothing because of me, so I wasn't living there. I wasn't packing and worried about moving, but it still cost me several extra months of holding costs that I didn't anticipate, simply because the contracts fell through. So, and I wasn't a licensed broker yet. I mean, I think I was by the time it closed, but I mean, mine's fresh, just right before the holidays or right at the holidays. So I'm like really fresh as a broker. Although I did list my first property. It's my own property, and it was under contract in 24 hours. So I get excited easily. Just ignore me. It's okay. So I don't necessarily agree or disagree with the law, but it is what it is. And so we do have to honor it. I chose to get my license to protect myself. But you don't necessarily have to have it and use it, especially if you double close, because you are buying the property and you are using it for your own purposes. Like I said, as long as you are on title for 30 seconds or whatever, you can do whatever you want. But if you're concerned, I highly recommend, because I have to, that you seek legal advice.
Yeah, I got those two confused. I know exactly what you're referring to now. All right. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it, Cheryl.
Yeah, no problem. I saw somebody else had a question. Who's visiting?
Hi, Cheryl. Can you hear me?
I can. What's your name?
My name is Stanford. How are you?
Hi, Jerry. All good. What's up?
About the inner circle. I'm familiar with DealVault. As far as the leads go, how do we access those leads? Or how does that process work as far as getting to those leads?
So to get to those leads, my understanding, and I'm going to have to bring Hugo or Phil on the line to help for sure, but my understanding is that the leads that are provided to the inner circle are specifically for the inner circle. ChicagoDealVault has its own set of leads that you can reach out and market to. Hugo, do you want to jump on and describe the difference?
Yeah, absolutely. So once you become part of the inner circle, then you have access to the high equity pre-foreclosure leads that we provide over to you, and you can start making phone calls because we do skip tracing for you for every single lead. So yeah, you'll have access to that information at your fingertips. That's one of the benefits of being part of the inner circle, because obviously we have skin on the game. We want you to be successful, so we are putting all our resources into these programs. So this is by far the most important project for us in 2021. So we're going to give you not only the leads, but we're going to be doing the number crunching for you. Should you have a property that you need analysis with, send us an email. It has a special keyword. We're going to rate it as priority, and then we're going to do the number crunching for you fairly quickly.
And I'm so sorry that in my intro, I ignored the inner circle, but I'll give you guys a heads up even before our inner circle meeting, which is tomorrow night. Hugo and I are getting together and we're going to record a bunch of videos to help for additional training for some questions that have come up over and over, like how do we handle, because these have come up just this last week in our meeting. How do you handle the earnest money question, right? When somebody was asking for $3K of earnest money, and I don't believe that you should have to do that, but how do you handle it? How do you handle the attorney conversation? How do you, write up the contract? How do you evaluate numbers? How do you do those things? So that's a brief glimpse into what's coming that outside of those of you that are in the inner circle that I see here on this call, you won't know until tomorrow. Shh.
So Hugo, I remember we kind of started something a little bit like this before last year. Is it kind of similar to that or different than what we were trying to do before?
Are you asking Hugo? Because I don't know what was being done before. I'm new to Chicago. Hugo, jump on.
What's the question again? Can you please repeat the question?
Yeah, Hugo, I remember we had tried to do something like this before. In 2020, we had started a little bit, and then we had kind of, cut it off because of everything that was happening. Is this kind of similar to what we were starting up before?
Nothing similar. This is totally different.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, nothing similar. This is completely different because before we were using the dialer, right? And that's a big no-no in today's market because you can find thousands. So we stopped doing that. So we have other marketing ways. Plus, we're focusing as Laser Beam on high equity pre-foreclosures. So it's completely different. Not only that, but we are doing, we have a couple of offers that we're making. So it's a lot simpler. And then we have Cheryl leading the entire effort. I mean, she's done hundreds nationwide and she owns a big rental portfolio. So pretty much you're working with the best in that.
Okay. Gotcha. Thanks, Hugo. Thanks, Cheryl.
Oh, no problem. My pleasure.
Hi, Cheryl.
Hi.
Hi, this is Tim from Chicago. How are you?
Oh, good, Tim. What's up?
Listen, I have a twofold question. I also put it in a chat box. So do you need to be a member of the Chicago Deal Vault in order to join the inner circle? And then my second question was, what was the cost of the program?
Hugo,
I
jump
can
on.
take that. So, yes, the only requirement to be part of the inner circle is to have an active membership. So it could be a monthly, it could be a yearly. So that's the only requirement for you to be active as part of ChicagoDealVault. So you're going to
Okay,
be part of this elite group with support, and all our resources are available to you. Something really amazing that we've done for the team is we created a nurturing campaign for seller leads. So you don't even need to do that. So we have automated that into our CRM, where if you have a meaningful conversation with the owner, you don't need to follow up with the owner. All you need to do is put the lead into our CRM, and guess what? The CRM is going to take care of a 381-day nurturing campaign. So when the seller is ready to pull the trigger, guess who they're going to call? They're going to call you. So it's going to have every piece of communication, either via email or cell phone, is going to have your contact information, your name, your phone number, so the seller is going to be constantly in touch through your communication.
And you guys have no idea how awesome that is. I didn't have any of that at all. So I didn't have anybody number crunching for me. I didn't have anybody skip tracing for me. I had to do it all myself. I didn't have anybody support. And these are everything that I do on a daily basis. I was at a meeting today and I didn't think about it, or I would have done it. I'm probably on my next meeting. I'm going to, assuming they'll let me, is just videotape the sales call so you guys can see what it is, see what it's like. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'll even have someone from the inner circle, they can come hang out with me for a day. Who knows? It's entertaining. But I didn't have these things, and Hugo's got it all set up, so I'm kind of envious. But there's no, you guys will see with me, there's no secrets. I just tell it like it is. So this is exactly what I say and do when I go out there. The inner circle will tell you I say very inappropriate things. So it's all good, but we have a lot of fun. There is a question that came up that I want to make sure that I don't skip. Is asking if I can recommend an investor-friendly real estate office where I can hang my license, title company, and an attorney. And also, how do you avoid getting fined by the city for bandit signs? These are a lot of good questions. So an investor-friendly real estate office, well, we have Hugo. I'm brand new to having a license. I had done a little research. I have plenty of friends in the industry at this point. Many of them, charge different things, and my best deal was with Hugo, so I'd have to recommend being with Hugo. You just have to call around and see and talk to everybody as far as what you'd be charged. I don't know if you guys realize, but it's not free to be a broker. It's not at all. And part of the reason a lot of us investors don't want our license is because it's expensive. It's you can handle, I'm sure, the education and taking the exam. There's costs to registering for the exam. There's costs for taking the exam. There's costs for, the courses. You have to have so many hours of education. So, it's like being back in school. Then you have annual dues. Then you have, your fees for the MLS and different associations. And you guys know that when you list somebody's property, and I'm not talking about your own, but your own can have it too with some agencies. When you list a property, if you're doing it on behalf of somebody else, then you got to think about it. If you went to call a realtor right now to list your property, what would you expect of them? They take photos of your property. That's not free. They have to pay a photographer, right? They have fees to put it on the MLS. I didn't necessarily know this before. I was just like, throw it up there. If they put the sign in the yard, there's fees for that too. And then while they get their percentage, it actually goes to the brokerage, and the brokerage distributes the portion to you, right? And so there's some split there. Some agencies will charge you monthly fees for using their office and using their, name, like a Remax or, a Coldwell Banker or App Properties or whatever, Bird Warner, whatever your choice is. most of them will have either monthly fees or they'll take a higher percentage of your commission. So if your commission is $5,000 and, you know, they take, you know, 20, 30%, you're not getting $5,000. So, you know, that's something to consider. So it can be very expensive. And then you're still having that same marketing, right? Well, if I go and I market without my license before I was a broker and before the law changed, right? So if I went and I marketed and I take and put a buyer and a seller together, so to speak, right? I take the seller, I put me in the middle, and I get a new buyer, and that fee in the middle, just like a broker, I'm just better at it, right? So that fee is mine. The brokerage doesn't take anything. There's no brokerage, right? So if I got a $5,000 fee for that, I kept all $5,000, right? And I didn't have to go shoving a bunch of paperwork around, right, for appraisals and inspections and surveys and attorneys and stuff. I took care of it all myself, and I kept my $5,000. I didn't have to pay a photographer, right? I mean, you can. Some people that wholesale, depending on, you know, how large your team is or whatever, I'll pay somebody to take pictures, but it won't always be a professional photographer, especially if I'm selling to an investor. And at this point, you know, I send somebody a text message and they come running, so it's fine. So as far as an agency, the only one I can truthfully recommend is Hugo. So thanks again, Hugo, for holding my license. Part of it being that I'm new, and Hugo and I have worked out something that works for us financially. As far as title companies, I mean, there's a million title companies. So wherever, I personally do the majority of my business with Fidelity and Chicago Title. They know me there. I get really good rates. I've worked with First American. I've worked with PNC. I've worked with Old Republic. I don't have a problem with any title company. Most of the time, your seller gets to choose the title company. And unless you're paying all closing costs, then sometimes you can convince them to choose. But again, there's a lot of discussions about the attorney and title company. So you go where you're comfortable. Like anything else, it's like a bank. I would do my best to establish a relationship with that bank or with that title company. And the more business you do, the better that they're going to treat you. Just like you want a small bank, right, where they know your name and you've had an account for a long time, even if it's $500, that'll serve you well. An attorney, for those of you that have heard me on the inner circle, I'm just not a fan of attorneys. I try and keep them out whenever I can. We do have some attorneys that we use. I have a whole bunch, but I use them for different things. So it's hard for me to blatantly recommend an attorney. And you have to somewhat be careful because if you're selecting an attorney, there's a certain reason. Some of them are doing, like I have ones that do litigation. So for like evictions, not all attorneys do that. Some of them will that I'll take subject to the mortgage. Some attorneys don't do that. Some of them will work only certain areas, or they'll want to be at the closing, or they need agency fee or whatever it is. So there's a whole different bunch of reasons that I choose the attorneys that I do. Same thing like a broker. If your seller doesn't have an attorney, then you got to be careful recommending an attorney, because if you're using an attorney, which I don't on the buy side, but if you're using an attorney, they can't work both sides. They can't be a dual agent like a realtor can. And even realtors shouldn't always be, and there's disclosures involved. See, the things I learn as a broker. See, but Hugo, I'm a good girl. I follow all the rules. So, but as an attorney, they can't work both sides because they have their fiduciary responsibilities to their clients. Although I'm sure the inner circle will tell you that I don't speak highly of attorneys, very few anyway, when they're not on my side, and they don't like the way I work, and they are not, in my opinion, typically out to help the client. I believe that they are out to help themselves first and the court second, and it's actually in their oath. So that's always a fun conversation. How do you avoid getting fined by the city for bandit signs? I don't know. Do I have code enforcement on here? I don't want to disclose all that stuff. But it depends where the number goes. If you guys call the number on my sign, you don't come to me. you come to an answering service and they don't have my information, so I'm pretty hard to find. So they got to catch you is the bottom line, and I'm pretty hard to catch. So that's one thing. We do get with the Bandit Signs, you do get code enforcement calls. You get yelled at a lot, but it doesn't really bother me. See, I like the ones of you that your video is on, you like either laugh at me or you just stare at me like, okay, there's this crazy hyper chick that talks a mile a minute. You know, like I'm overwhelmed. I can't get it.
We're laughing with you.
Of course. I'm laughing all the time. You know what? You gotta have fun because it can, like anything else, it's hard work and it's gotta be worth it. And, like anything else, you gotta have your why. Like, what's the reason you do this? Why are you on this call? Hopefully you're on this call because you want to learn something and you want to take action, right? If you're going to take action, join the inner circle. Those are where the action takers are. If you're there for training, that's fine. You can get it here and there's lots of training and lots of support, but you don't want to plan. Those that take action are going to be successful. We can fix, all the things that move. My why, my daughter's applying to some crazy colleges where tuition's like $72K a year. Holy moly, right? So I got to keep going. My husband's a dentist. He can't do that forever. He takes care of most of the stuff now, and I'm his retirement plan. So, and he tells me that I have to keep him in the manner he's so deserving. So I got a lot of work ahead of me. See, you laugh at that too, right? So, that's my why. I don't miss a single thing for my kids. I've been at every single band concert, sports events, except when I have to split myself in two because, my daughter had a travel softball team at the same time as softball game at the same time my son had a travel baseball game. That happens. I can't fix that. But outside of that, I don't miss a thing. I'm in any band, choir, concert. I'm at all their school events. Hugo's always with his kids. I mean, I was my daughter's Girl Scout troop leader. I managed her softball team. I've coached her softball team. I've coached my son's baseball teams. But that's where I want to be and what I want to be doing. Like I said, this week I have one of my front desk girls at my husband's office. She's out of the country, and I'm going to fill in. And you know what? My houses are still going to come and go. So it's important. Those of you that want to get out of a job, those of you that, need some extra cash, you can do it part-time. You absolutely can, but you still have to work. On a part-time basis, you're probably going to ebb and flow, or even if you're not consistently marketing, you're not going to be able to keep it going. So you want to do something that's consistent. We talk about on the inner circle, making a certain number of calls a day or sending a certain number of postcards. And, like Hugo said, having a meaningful conversation, meaning, they talk to you about their house. They talk to you about, a contract. They talk to you about something, not just, hey, I'm looking to buy your house. And then he's got a huge follow-up campaign, which I'm so jealous of. That's probably one of the number one things that people fail when they first start, is because they have to work so hard and either they don't get a deal, and the flip is in the follow-up, right? Like most deals, I can tell you from 10 plus years experience, are not what I'd call one call close. Have I done it? Yes. Have I done quite a few of them? Absolutely. And when you set it up right, it can be that way. And when they're motivated, it can be that way. But that's not always. And sometimes you just get lucky, right? And what I mean by getting lucky is you have to make your own luck. Somebody put in here Investor Title Services. That's another title company. That's Dan and Joe, and they use Old Republic is who they go through to underwrite that one. So that one you can use too. Somebody asked, hi Cheryl, what do you think about cold calling? It's hard, but it's a lot of fun. And then the thing is, I look at it, the harder that it is, then everybody else is having a hard time. When you put out a Bandit sign, And it's easier in some senses, right? You're paying for marketing and you're getting yelled at, and that's kind of fun too. And you get prank phone calls, and you get people, you know, that say and do all sorts of funny, let's call them funny things. But people are calling you. It's always easier when people are calling you. That presents its own challenges though, right? When people call you, that means you're not likely the only one that they're calling, right? I'm not the only one with a bandit sign out there. So those that are that motivated, or they're trying to get the highest number, or whatever it's they're trying to do, they've called me, they've called Dan and Joe, they've called Homevestors, they've called Grandview, they've called everyone under the sun, right? And that makes it harder. So now, how do you get in front of that seller and make sure they go with you, right? So that's the important part of that. But if you're cold calling and that's how you get them, then they're probably not as motivated, or you caught them at a right time. Or if they're hard to get to, then guess what? They're hard for all of us to get to. So the one that gets to them first, or the one that gets to them the best, is the one that gets the deal. The ones that you get from cold calling typically have the biggest spread and the least competition. So I love cold calling. I find it a challenge and entertaining. I come from the sales world, so they're bigger, better deals if you can get them. Some people are so afraid to pick up the phone. They don't know what to say. They don't know how to say it, and you know, but you just got to do it and make it entertaining. That's the advice to the inner circle team on that was, you know, don't do more than a certain amount in a certain amount of time, because you don't want it to be boring and heavy. You gotta break it up, whether it's, you know, you only do it for an hour or you do 10 calls. But it is a numbers game. Whether you're marketing, whether you're cold calling, it's a numbers game. You're going to hit a certain amount of leads that you can convert to first calls, whether, you know, in person or by phone or virtually meeting with the seller. And then you get a certain number of houses under contract, and that's when you get the deal. So Jerry prefers the fortune is in the follow-up. The flip is in the follow-up, but fortune's good too. I believe it. So Investors Title Services is very friendly title, and will do double closings. Yes, they're underwritten by other title companies that will do it, but they know what they're doing. In your deal, does the seller normally use an attorney? Someone has to use an attorney somewhere. If I'm buying the deal, if I'm buying the house, the seller typically has an attorney, but if they don't want to, then we can use my attorney. They just have to sign something saying that the attorney is working on my behalf and not theirs. The reason that you have to have an attorney is the seller docs have to be typically created by an attorney. Technically, you can do them yourself. I don't recommend it, but I know people who have, but in that it's worth a couple bucks, and there are attorneys that you can pay them like $250 and they'll create all the seller docs for you, and they're not really involved in the deal. They're just really creating the documents. Really, it's so easy for them. They enter a little information on both ends of the parties, their names, and in 15 minutes they can click a button and all the documents kind of spit out. It's not hard. They get paid really well. Somebody asked me about the inner circle and contact numbers. I'd send that one to support at ChicagoDealVault. They will tell you that because I don't have access quickly to those links. What do I think the wholesaling future looks like during this pandemic? I think wholesaling has always been good and will always be good. The only thing that changes with wholesaling is the numbers. That's buying and selling. Real estate is always where it's at. As far as my personal prediction on the market right now is we're at the very peak. I refer to it as people are paying stupid money right now for houses. Again, rates are low. We're like back in like 2007, right? Right before it goes, right? Or you want to explode, whatever your version is. But I do believe that there's an impending crash that's coming. So right now it's considered a seller's market. So people want way too much for their properties, and they are, when you sell, if you're selling right now, you'll get too much for your properties, and it's going to be that person's problem later. As far as wholesaling goes, it's all a numbers thing. So as long as you can get it for less than somebody else is willing to buy it, wholesaling lives. There's always going to be people needing to have their houses rehabbed, because we live in them like our cars, right? And they go down. So they always need to be rehabbed. And there's always somebody willing to rehab it. And whether or not they decide to rent or fix and sell, it's all about how you make sure that you get the appropriate number that you can sell it to them to do that if you're selling to an investor. Or some houses, from a wholesaling perspective, no one said it had to be a piece of trash. I bought pretty houses, right? Houses that look good and smell better. If you can get them at the right price and still sell them for the right price, whether you list them, right? We call that wholetailing, for those of you that have heard that term. So now you're buying it for a certain amount, which is, I usually call it cheap for cash, or less expensive than what you can sell it for. When you wholesale, typically you purchase it, you close on the property, and it's sort of a double close, but it's not really a double close because it's not the same day. But you purchase the property and then you put it up on the market, whether it's on the MLS or just personally, Zillow, Facebook Marketplace, whatever it is that you're currently using. And then and you sell it, and you sell it more on the retail market. And that's quite profitable too. So right now, if you can get something cheap for cash, and you can't necessarily get rid of it to an investor, it might be a good thing if you can afford to purchase it outright and then put it on the market. But you've got to be able to maneuver all those details, have the cash, and then know what the price is and know how to get it through to that retail buyer. But most of these millennials, they don't know what sweat equity is. And I'm sorry if you guys are on here. I don't know who everybody is, but the majority of the millennials, they don't know how to fix things. They don't have money. There's a lot of concessions that have to be given that screws the seller on a wholesale deal, or even selling things retail. It's a lot of work. So most of them aren't going to be the houses that are destroyed and need to be rehabbed. They want the houses for, and I should say they being the buyers, whether millennials or just buyers, they want $1 million perfectly rehabbed houses for $1. I do too. Wouldn't that be great? Somebody asked me, are there some areas better than others in getting deals? Yes. Are B areas better than A areas in getting deals? I get deals anywhere. The difference in a B area and an A area and getting deals is how it is the numbers, I would say. A B area, you might have more rentals. So it might be something where you might have room to fix and sell and fix and flip. So it might give you more buyers. But I look at the best place to get deals with those that are motivated to sell it at the price that you need to have it, right? It's not necessarily about the areas. My 6-figure wholesale deal was in Park Ridge, right? I got it for 100 grand, sold it for 255. That's how it goes, right? It was Park Ridge, right? That's an exciting one. I've had places like Round Lake where, and of course there's Round Lake Beach, Round Lake Heights, Round Lake Park, Round Lake, and I've got houses in them all and sold in all of them. And I've done anything from 1,000 to 100,000 in those areas. It's just it's so hard to say. I would say there's more likely areas like a B area where you're dealing maybe with a tired landlord might be more likely to get a deal than an A area where people are living and less likely to leave. But people in A areas, they pass away. and they leave houses to their kids that can't necessarily afford them or live out of state. So you can find, I'm a firm believer you can find a deal anywhere. I agree with Hugo. I don't go down to, you know, the war zones. I have been shot at before, but I'm from Detroit, so I guess that's kind of normal for me. I do have houses in Gary, Indiana. They cash flow very nicely. I love those houses. And my husband gives me a curfew. I get to go between 10 and 3. But you know, I have fun. But there's some like on the south side that I won't touch. If I find a street that like there's more boarded up houses than there are good houses, I won't touch it. Where I can buy a whole block for $1. Sounds exciting, but I won't do it. Someone asked, how is wholesaling different from a fix and flip? And I think it was privately to me. I'm not sure if it was intentional or not, but I'm going to answer it live for all of you. That's a good question. A fix and flip is the traditional way, is where you buy it typically cheap for cash, although I've done it differently too. I've been creative. And you, we call it take it down, you close on it, right? You purchase it, then you fix or rehab so that you make it a beautiful home, and then you sell it on the retail market. That's the traditional way to fix and flip, right? So you buy a house for 100 grand, you spend 50 grand in rehab, you're now in it 150, and then you sell it for 250, and then minus all the costs, you make, you know, a nice profit, right? And then a wholesale, like wholesaling, is where you're never on, well, in a wholesale you might be on title, but where you don't have to be on title. But again, traditionally a wholesaling is where you're going to purchase the property, so you own it. And then, but the house may not need as much rehab, like it's livable, right? And we're talking about houses that when you wholesale, some of them, I've fallen through floors. You have to get access by jumping through a window. And like I said, there's no floors, there's no ceilings, there's no copper, there's no, and they're not all that bad, right? Some of them just need like severe renovation. There might be holes in the wall, or, you know, it just I saw one today that the kitchens and the bathrooms, the woman lived there for 55 years and it's never been upgraded. So she's kept up with some of the maintenance, like a furnace or a hot water heater, because you've had to in 55 years, and there's some siding or roof or something that was done. So maintenance, but she never modernized the kitchen, the bathroom, the bedrooms, the floors. Nothing's ever really been touched, okay? So in that case, I mean, that would probably be a cosmetic rehab. But I don't know if we could wholesale that one. A wholesale would be like, let's say there was a renter living there, and maybe it's everything's still functional and it's good, but and livable, but you just can't, you know, and you could sell it on the market, but maybe you can, an investor wouldn't necessarily want it because there's not as much spread for them to fix it and sell it for them to have a profit. So what you can do, and I did this in one in Addison, Illinois, where I bought it for $140K. So I purchased it. My company purchased it for $140K, and I wasn't an agent, so I then turned around and I put it on the market with a broker, and I sold it for $209K. So I didn't fix anything. I didn't even clean it out. It was nice. It was already cleaned. So that would be the difference in wholesaling. It's like a wholesale, so you're not really putting any money in it, and you're just selling it. You're selling it on the retail market. I have wholesaled, and now that I'm a broker, I guess I could, where you get it under contract and you just have a longer term contract, and then you know, sell it to somebody that way, still on the retail market. They don't care. Cash is cash, but a mortgage is cash. It just takes longer, you know, as long as you have room to sell it on the back end to get through all the contingencies that you have to do. Someone else asked a question, how much longer will the market keep going before it tanks, and what are the indicators or events that would precede it tanking? Good question. I can't predict, obviously. I'd love to say the day it's going to tank, but not that smart. I think it's going to take mid to late year. It depends how things occur in politics and the banks is what dictates it. So right now, lending is still wide open with low interest rates. As soon as you see the banks lock up, it's literally overnight goes, right? Somebody else said, look out once they lift the foreclosure and eviction moratoriums. You're going to see a lot of it. A lot of it. I'm excited. So the good news and bad news about that when that comes, right? The good news is we can start buying things for like, you know, pennies on the dollar again, which will be cool. The bad news is you can't sell it for stupid money then. It's one way or the other. You can either get great deals on the buy side or, you know, have people spend too much money on the sell side. But from a wholesaling perspective, same thing. You just have to get it a little cheaper than what people are going to buy it for. So that's where that you make the money. But as soon as you see the banks, I agree when the moratoriums and the evictions start coming back, when the moratorium's up, you're going to start seeing a ton of foreclosures. We're going to be, it's going to start hitting and have a buyer frenzy. But you can usually see where you follow the stock market and the banks. It's when the banks lock up that you're going to suddenly see everything start crash. Because when the banks aren't lending, then nobody can do anything. And with COVID this year, I think that's what stalled it. I think without COVID, we would have been much earlier. We would have had the market tanking. How do I deal with properties with renters inside? I'm gonna have to assume here that are we purchasing? Because I like renters as long as they pay. So I want to clarify for the one that asked, how do you deal with properties with renters inside? I don't have a problem with renters inside. If I'm buying a property with renters, I'm not a big fan. I'll do it, but to me, you have to get it cheaper because those renters never work out the way you want it to. So I guess if it's for buying, my response would be that you have to get it wholesaling with a renter in the property. Yeah, you hope to God that they're cooperative, or you pay them to be cooperative, like a cash for keys, and have them show. Because if they want to stay, if they like the place, then you just pay them. There's a price tag for anything, right? Most of them, and renters, most of them, you know, if they want to stay there and they've got a good rate and they don't want their rent to go up, you pay them and keep their terms the way they want, they'll be cooperative. If they're uncooperative, which we have one deal right now with the Inner Circle right now where they're uncooperative, then it means either you have to get the property cheaper or you're going to have to deal with the eviction. Can we get on these calls using an ID and password by cell phone like Zoom calls? No clue. We're going to have to send that to ChicagoDealVault. Hugo, do you or Phil want to jump that? I'm trying to rush through these questions because I know I always end up over my time and everybody yells at me. Let's see here. Found a pre-foreclosure in my daughter's cul-de-sac with high equity. Ooh, I don't know if my daughter personally knows them. How would you deal with this wholesale? Should I keep here out seeing the neighbors might be embarrassed? Yeah, I wouldn't bring your daughter in, and I don't know how old your daughter is or what skills she's got, but yeah, I wouldn't involve the daughter unless they're like my son. My son is amazing at he can sense everybody's everything. I don't rent to anybody or even sell to anybody without his approval because he's amazing. If she's like that, maybe. But if it's pre-foreclosure, you do have to be very sensitive to these people. Like I started off with saying how important rapport is and what's in it for them. Stay focused on that. You don't want to embarrass them. A lot of times we talk about on the Inner Circle, a great way to handle that is, you know, if you're letting everybody know what you do, then they're great ones to go to and say, hey, you know, I recently started looking, you know, I'm looking to buy, you know, you can say I recently started flipping houses, but some of those people are really sensitive. They don't want their house to be flipped, right? So, you know, I recently started investing in real estate and I wanted to try my sales pitch out on you. Or, you know, if you know anybody that meets X, Y, and Z quality, send them my way. That way you're not approaching it like you're going straight at them. and embarrassing them and making them feel upset. You want to get it to the point where you're doing such a good job talking about everybody else that they come to you and they're like, well, what about me? I need help. Can you help me with my house? That's the way you want to do it. You do not want to just go straight at, hey, I saw you had a pre-foreclosure notice and can I buy your house? Not a good way to go about it. And definitely keep things from neighbors. Neighbors are very nosy. And then Phil is responding. Did I answer everybody's questions? Aha. Or I bored y'all, scared y'all. Somebody asked this question, but it's not answered. Uh-oh.
You answered all the questions correctly. Thank you so very much. I really appreciate it.
Correctly. I didn't know I was being tested here. So someone has a question. This is Hugo. I need you and Phil to take these. So basically, wholesaling is super fun. It's a great way to make a living. It's a great entry point. It's even great if I used it to help build cash flow so that I can purchase properties. It's always good to keep the engine going. A skill of wholesaling and being able to talk to the private sellers and get deals under contract, you will always be busy because you're going to keep them for yourself too. You can cherry pick the ones that you want when you get them under contract to keep them so you can fix and flip them yourself if you want. You can fix and sell them. You can just sell them directly and make money. So it's great. You can have every option out there. Whoever has the deal gets to control it, which is super cool. I'd love to see those of you that are motivated and interested in learning more and willing to take action, that you want to come on board and join our inner circle. We're super excited to expand this. Like I said, we're going to be the top, best, well-known money-making team here in the Chicagoland area. And then after I push Hugo nationwide, so, I just got to work on him. So you guys can help me push him, especially for those of you that say you don't live in Chicago, Illinois. And you can always pass deals to me outside, right? Like I'll take care of you, but I've got houses nationwide. Somebody's asking, do we go after multi-units? I love multi-units. They're my favorite. More doors, more money if you hold on to them. Ideas to build rapport with the seller? Probably not today because I'm out of time, but we have a ton of those on the inner circle, and that's some of the videos that I was talking to you guys about that we'll be making for the inner circle team. And then you can watch and listen to me babble for hours and hours at a time should you choose. And you can see my little cat jump up there. Or actually I'll probably do it with Hugo, so you'll have a white screen. Thanks for being thorough. Yeah, that's one thing I am, super detailed all the time. And I think I got it. Yay! Hugo, come on before because otherwise, I'll keep them here all night, or they'll keep me here. Sam, we have 2 to 4. Okay.
So thank you very much, Cheryl. You are amazing. So friends, if you're interested, please make sure to fill out the form. If you want to become part of the Inner Circle team, it's just incredible. It's grown so fast. Last week, we already had a couple of contracts from the students, so it's pretty amazing how fast. And obviously, working with Cheryl has been an incredible learning experience for all of us. I mean, if there's anybody who knows wholesaling in and out, it's Cheryl. So thank you very much, Cheryl, for your time, for your support. You're incredible.
Always so fun.
And so thank you everyone for joining. Phil is going to remain on the line for the next couple of minutes if you have any further questions. And if not, please join us tomorrow. If you're interested, you can join us starting tomorrow at 6:30, the meeting with the Inner Circle Mastermind. So we'll see the details. Just please make sure that you fill out the form that was sent. Phil just sent that again. So thank you again, Cheryl. Thank you everyone for joining. I hope you learned a lot, and I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow because we want to make sure that you are more successful in 2021 than you've been in the past. And obviously, we want to make sure that you make more money in 2021 than you've made in the past. So thank you all. Thank you very much, Cheryl, and I'll see you all tomorrow, 6:30.
Thanks for having me. See you guys tomorrow.